This is Diana, and I'm Ana Rosa. And this is Mija, Let Me Tell You, a space for growing, healing, and figuring life out as first generation Mexican immigrants.
Hello, this is Mija. Let me tell you, bienvenidos. Welcome to our episode number 7.
I think, yes.
7. Pues muchas gracias. Lots of thanks for you and everyone who has been listening and watching. My sister and I have received great comments, comentarios excelentes, tanto en persona, por mensaje, and we're just very blessed to be part of this journey with you. Just to begin, talking a little bit of where we're at. Some of you may remember the Rinconcito de Mija, let me tell you, made by my husband Manuel, who took the time and you know he did a great job.
Yeah, shout out to Manuel.
Shout out. This is just a little place in our home dedicated to the podcast. So thank you so much for being part of this sueño. That's what I call it, the dream.
It's been great to kind of see everyone's comments, and we've recently got a comment about someone saying, this is exactly what I was looking for. I'm glad to hear that it's resonating with a lot of people, and we hope that people continue to kind of share their stories and continue to comment, and we move forward with the podcast.
Today's tema is
Ni de Aquí, Ni de Allá.
So ni de aquí ni de allá. Para nosotros, what does it mean? For us, it means we're not from here and we're not from our homeland, Mexico. We don't feel, even though we feel Mexico is our homeland, when we go to Mexico, there's a process where we might not feel like we fit in. And here in the United States, because we don't share the same cultural background as the general population, we feel also that we don't belong here. I remember Selena, you know, and her dad. There's a scene in Selena, it's a movie. If anyone recalls it, or if you have seen the movie Selena, it's a scene where the father and the brother and her are in the car, just like talking about a future
concert. I think they were wanting to go to a concert in Mexico or perform in Mexico.
Yeah, and el papa was like, Selena, let's start with, like, you know, your Spanish. And they talk about how our Spanish is different. Y si notan, ¿verdad? A nosotros que hemos crecido desde pequeños here in the United States, our Spanish is different.
It's different, yeah. Yeah, you have a certain way of pronouncing words, or you go from English to Spanish or Spanglish. You know, we kind of create our own language, right?
Yes, and even la tonadita, right? There's an accent there that tells you that English is perhaps our second language. And so, well, going back to the scene of Selena, there before we go on, they're driving in a car and they're just saying Selena and her brother are like really adamant about doing a concert in Mexico. And the father's like a little hesitant because Mija, like, he tells her the media will really criticize your Spanish, and she's like, what's wrong with my Spanish? I sing Spanish. You know, like, my songs are beautiful in Spanish. And she's like, yeah, but when you're not singing, it sounds different. And so they're debating in the car, you know, like, the why not. She's not ready to be out there. And then he says something that really resonates with me, and I know it resonated with you, Ana, when they say, tienes que ser más mexicano que los mexicanos y más americano que los americanos. So you kind of have to prove yourself that you kind of are part of that culture for acceptance. And sometimes we do feel like that.
Yeah. I feel like, you have to be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the American. Hard to fit into the in-between, I feel like, because, you know, you want to prove yourself that you are proud of where you come from, you are proud of your roots, but you may not be able to speak the language perfectly, right? And you want to fit into the U.S., but you still have your physical looks different or your cultural
beliefs or
beliefs,
traditions.
traditions, your food is different. So it's hard to find that kind of middle ground. And I think what the dad says is very true. We have to prove, when we're in a certain place that we are that certain culture. And it's a hard middle ground to kind of navigate. I feel like for a lot of first generation immigrants.
Only is you want to belong in both of the cultures because you are navigating both of the cultures. And for example, like if we travel to Mexico, our clothes are different, our Spanish is different. Se nos sale el Spanglish because that's who we are. And it's not that we're being volados or because that could be termed as volados. Oh, están hablando inglés aquí. It's just parte de who we are, de quién somos. El Spanglish es parte de quién somos. Nos navegamos aquí, también aquí hablamos Spanglish, español, inglés. Y allá en México también. So, no es como que allá ya estamos así, haciendo de otra forma, sino que es como digamos que está como los Estados Unidos, México y nosotros estamos en una mitad, ¿verdad? En un balance. Tratamos de pertenecer. Somos como los animalitos que cambian de color
Chameleons.
Los camaleones. Como la canción, ¿verdad? Los camaleones. Que nos adaptamos a donde tengamos que estar. Y así somos los inmigrantes. Nos vamos a adaptar wherever we are.
Yeah, that's very true. For our generation specifically, we're the first generation who is growing up in a new country. Like our parents grew up in Mexico and, their beliefs are intertwined into their environment. And for us, first generation immigrants, I feel like we're kind of going through this for the first time. Our parents are navigating through this for the first time, raising kids in a new country. That is different than where they grew up and how they grew up. Challenge for our parents too, and it's a good reminder to give them grace because it is their first time navigating raising a child in a new country. That's different than how their parents raised them.
Yeah, and I could relate a little bit now raising my own kids. It's like, yo quiero que hablen español. Yeah. And how does that look at home? En mi casa hablamos español, pero sí se nos escapa el inglés, porque mi esposo y yo hablamos inglés. Pero como nuestra identidad ya es, ¿verdad? Que somos bilingües, a veces se fluye la conversación bilingüe, pero lo entienden. ¿Verdad? Noto que mi niña y mi niño nos entienden en español o nos entienden en inglés, pero sí prefieren el inglés. Y es como ese recordatorio como padres, aunque es un poquito diferente la experiencia de nuestros padres, porque ellos, ¿verdad? El español lo tienen, ¿verdad? Arraigado. De nosotros es nuestro challenge, nuestro desafío como padres con hijos nacidos aquí y nosotros en la mayoría de nuestra vida crecidos aquí. Para mi esposo y para mí ha sido un reto que cómo preservar las tradiciones, el lenguaje. It's been a challenge to preserve our language and our traditions and our culture. My daughter started school already, entonces es like inglés solamente en la escuela y español. So we try to do Spanish at home, even though we sometimes do Spanglish because my husband and myself speak it. So I can kind of relate a little bit to my parents in that way. But I know it's entirely different because ellos su primordial lenguaje es español. No recurrían al inglés like we do.
We do, yeah. Yeah. They're trying to catch up with the new culture too, like I remember growing up, like Lunchables were such a big thing, like something as simple as like our lunch. Like I remember growing up and thinking like, oh, the kids that have Lunchables, they must be so rich, they're so cool. And I remember like my parents were like, what is a Lunchable?
Sí,
like,
¿qué es esa cosa? No es saludable, no es saludable.
Yeah.
No se compra allí, está
está preparado, like it's pre-made.
Nada de calientito, está en el refrigerador, it's in the fridge.
Yeah. So something as simple as that, where they had to learn to, oh, like this is something that the kids are wanting, that's different than My mom talked about snacks in la escuela were un elote or something like
Sí, garbancitas
garbanz.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Something more typical.
Right. And they come here and they're like a Lunchable. ¿Qué es un
¿Con qué se come?
Yeah. So yeah, you start realizing, and I think my parents start realizing, oh, we're in a new country. There are adaptations that need to be made, right?
Yeah. And they definitely did, you know. It also reminds me of the película de la India María.
No.
Ni de Aquí, Ni de Allá movie I think was filmed in like 87. So 1987. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, my dad would come to the U.S. during that time.
Yeah.
And if you have the chance, if you haven't seen La India María, it's a very iconic character. Go in there and analyze her different movies. They have a lot of like social commentary and a lot of things that were going on in Mexico, but also that particular movie, it hits home. To recap it a little bit, India Maria is, like the name says, is someone who is of
like native of Mexico.
Typical clothing, like cultural clothing, like she's wearing her dress, very colorful dress, definitely stands out from the general population. La India Maria wears a rebozo and she wears her hat sometimes, and she's
and like I think a mandil is like an apron.
Yeah,
as well.
An apron or typical clothing.
Yeah.
And so in this particular movie, hard times are in Mexico. So she embodies the hardship, and she's selling things in el mercado. And she's with her dad and someone else, and she apparently some people from the US, you know, like tourists, went there, and they encouraged her to come to the United States with them. And she sees the hardship, things are not selling in the mercadito, and her dad is older, and she says, well, you know, I'm gonna take the opportunity. But, you know, she didn't have her papeles. She had probably a permit. Because I remember when she was going through customs, they asked her, like, ¿Tiene su permiso? And the reason they asked her is because she already had gone through, you know, customs. But then she returns for her chiles that her dad had packed for her. Yeah, she definitely has a hard time understanding how things work. And so she's in the airport trying to get her chiles because her dad packed them, so they have that, you know, sentimental value. And you know, she witnesses like murder and things like that. So pobrecita, she's like running around, like doesn't know where to go. She loses the people she came with, and so she goes on a journey of survival. She's working in different jobs to make ends meet, and at the end of the day, she gets sent back to Mexico. I think she's like, you know, I am tired of eating coffee and donuts.
Because I think that's the only English words she knew, right?
And so she was fed up with it, you know, and she was on survival mode. And then at the end of the day, she returns back. So she wasn't ni de aquí ni de allá, because at the beginning, su papá le dice, ya después vas a ser ni de aquí ni de allá, you know? And it's like, that's how we feel in a way when we talk about ni de aquí ni de allá, is that process of belonging. Sometimes we don't belong here, we don't belong over there. We're kind of in the middle, and that's a culture in itself. Being in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of like a third culture. You have very strong ties with Mexico, your native land, but you are living in this new country where you've settled down, you've created roots, and now you only go to Mexico, your native land, to visit family or vacation. When you are in that middle, there's a lot of growth and a lot of struggle, kind of like we've talked about, where, you know, she was trying to navigate the system, learn the language. I commend our first generation immigrant peers, because it is a struggle that not a lot of people understand.
Yeah, and some of us have been lucky to have had the opportunity to come when someone else had already traveled that journey, and kind of help bridge that. But if you were the first in your family to come to the United States and figure how things were, I can imagine it was really rough. You know, estaba difícil la cosa being the first one, and just being able to figure out like currency, language, living situations, transportation, all the things that we see La India Maria struggling with. I can just imagine how those who came before us, who paved the way, had to navigate and get to where they were at. Mm-hmm. And then they knew that struggle, mm-hmm. so then they like facilitated the pathway for those after. So one of the things to exemplify what we mean ni de aquí ni de allá and what the middle culture or middle ground is like when we started dating. Mm-hmm. as an older sibling, for me, I think that my process was very different than for you and my siblings. Like for me was I'm the oldest, and I started dating kind of young. And so my parents wanted to keep the tradition of Mexico, and Manuel had to go through that process where in Mexico, the one person who is pursuing the daughter, right, has to talk to the parents for permission. And permission for what? So permission to come and speak to the novia, right, mm-hmm. outside of their house, which is customary. In Mexico, if you have a boyfriend, well, at least back in the day, I don't know how it is right now, but back in the day, it was very traditional. Mm-hmm. The gentleman who wanted to court the lady would go to the parents' house, and usually the girl coordinated that, like, oh, papa, va a venir fulano de tal, like, hoping that
the dad things would
agree and things would go well. And I know I was really young. I was 13 when I started dating Manuel, so I can totally understand now that I have children how my parents felt.
And you dated really young. You were in junior high? Or?
I was in 8th grade.
8th grade, yeah.
Yeah, so it was young. So now I look at my children, I'm like, ay, Dios mío, at 13, I don't know. Like, I would be in the same place as my parents. My parents really, really, really thought good things about Manuel, so I think that helped. Mm-hmm. That was in his favor. But he came to my parents and he said, I want to date your daughter. And, that meant for my parents and for him that he could come over and talk to me. But we would not talk inside the house. We would talk outside the house. Iba a platicar. So every day he would go for an hour. Yeah. It was an hour.
It was like right straight for the hour.
It was an hour.
There was not a minute more, a minute less.
And so my parents would be like, una hora. And if I passed that hour, I would hear it. Like, I would hear not just like a talk, but I would hear like a knock.
A knock on the door.
And that was like my sign that you better wrap it up.
Yeah.
And that was outside my house. And even then, like if we went out to eat or we went on a date to las movies, ¿qué pasaban?
I was the chosen one as the chaperone, and I was like 8 years old, so I was mostly going for the free food, probably.
Yeah, I mean.
But my parents felt like having me there was having eyes there for them, I guess in a sense.
Such a big responsibility for someone tan chiquita.
Yeah.
Anna, you better watch out that they're behaving.
So and I had to come home and give them a report of of the happenings.
You're like, everything checks off the mark.
Yes, they did good.
Yes. So that was it. Like, it was like a play on things of Diana's gonna go on a date, but she can't go by herself. She needs to be accompanied. Mm-hmm. And poor Manuel, like, he was in high school, when he's 2 years older than myself. So we were in high school dating. He worked. And he was able to buy, obviously, the tickets. I remember we got, like, the family pack in the Buellton
Theater. Movie theater, yeah.
And the reason it was a family pack, it was because it had, like...
Did it come with candy? Is that why?
It had, like, a candy, I think, and then a big tub of, like, popcorn and 3 drinks.
Okay.
I think that's how it worked.
That's perfect.
And it was the perfect size. And I remember que, my parents would be, okay, pero tengan mucho cuidado. Mm-hmm. And like they didn't really specifically say what you had to have cuidado of, but they assumed that you knew, and you kind of sort of knew yourself. there was not a lot of explanation, but it was kind of like inferred.
Yes, Diana, respect yourself, right? That was the whole time.
They really wanted it to be like how it was in their times. So, but here I am, right? Wanting to go to las movies. I wanted to do the things that like
everyone else was doing.
Yeah,
right?
Dating. Like in Mexico, there's no dating. En Mexico, eres novia o no eres novio.
Right.
Like no es como que, well, at least that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
Que no había un intermedio. You either were with the person or not.
Yeah.
And I think my parents were like that. And here, what we learned, and something, I didn't do because I married my high school sweetheart, was that you dated people.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that's where like the in between was. Yo quería hacer, go out and this, and my parents would say, "Mija, in my time,
yeah,
no nos dejaban ir, al baile,
right.
al baile, si ibas, pues también te estaban
Sí.
mirando."
Yeah, o ni agarrarse de la mano. You
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
hold
no, that was
hands
a
with your
pecado.
boyfriend.
God forbid.
Because that was looked down upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, at least I had a level of I guess a little bit of freedom, but it wasn't as strict as when they had it, but it wasn't as loose as my other siblings have it.
Looking at my parents' perspective, they were trying to navigate this dating world in this new country. They had to really figure out your freedom, but also keeping you within their cultural beliefs and their cultural expectations. And that's really hard to do, that middle ground that we've talked about, where ni de aquí, ni de allá. You want to have your daughter have the dating experience that you kind of had, but also realizing she is in a new environment. There's new friends going on. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't go on like regular school dances. The first dance that I went with Manuel for the school dance was my prom. And that was it.
Was that senior year?
That was my senior year. So we've been
school?
dating for what, almost 5 years.
Yeah.
Before going to like a dance, formal dance at the school, en la escuela, right?
Right.
Sí, íbamos a bailes acá, pues cuando íbamos
la
a México, la
something.
quinceañera, so era como en el ambiente de México, ¿verdad? Pero acá en el ambiente de los Estados Unidos y las tradiciones, it was just prom.
It was
prom. And it was like a big deal for us. It was like, ay, Dios mío, like, me van a dejar? What? And Ana's not coming with me. Or Gabrielito or whoever.
You cut ties with Ana.
Wow, ya me tienen confianza.
You graduated from Ana's supervision.
Sí, ya aprobada.
Yeah, yeah.
It was approved that I could go on my own. And like you said, they were trying to navigate this world. And as a parent, if you're listening and you're a parent, we can only do what we can with what we have.
Yeah.
And we don't know the outcome in the long term, but we can just root ourselves in our values and do the best that we can with what we have. And there's not a written book or manual, and especially not like in this situation, ni de aquí ni de allá, that you are like trying to. It's a hard line for parents.
Right.
It really is.
There's no manual where like, okay, if you're living in a different country, this is how you can raise your child while still keeping those cultural expectations.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is really hard. Going back to like dating, I know for me, I dated my husband, I was older than you. Seeing the cultural differences, I was older. I met him through the dating apps. So shout out to Bumble. That's how I met my husband. And at first I remember my parents were like, Ana, you're going to meet someone through your phone? Like, how does that work? And I had to explain to them that I had friends that had met their significant others through the apps. And I tried dating also classic way, and it hadn't worked out for me. So I was open to trying the apps, and it worked out for me, luckily. For my parents, it was like, so you're talking to someone that you've never met on the phone, and then you're going to meet them, and you're going to not have a chaperone?
Complete stranger that you're going to meet on a place.
Yes, yeah. And I'll be like, I shared my location when I went on dates. And I went on the date with my now husband. I like sent a picture to mi comadre Yana of what I was wearing in case I went missing,
I remember. I was like, why am I getting a picture in case you need it?
In case you need it. And here's a picture of the guy too.
In case you need a description.
You never know. You never know. Like, you hear wild stories of people on dating apps too. And I understand my parents' concerns because this is something that they never experienced in their lives. And it was new to them. But they were open years after you had gone through the dating process. They were now open to having their daughter meet someone online. It shows that assimilation process for our parents, because they're like, okay, if this is what the kids are doing now, giving us the opportunity to explore and live our experience. Yeah, so it's commendable to them too, because I'm sure my mom was like, what is going on?
That was out of bound for their world. It's like, okay, like now we're talking about technology, and my parents are learning about technology, so they don't know what we know of like the different things that can happen in a
Right.
dating app. So for
Yes.
them, they had hesitation of like, es algo en línea, like some stranger. Like, I mean, there's a process for what you went through,
Yeah.
but for them, it was like, this is a complete stranger. Never, like, ¿qué está haciendo mi hija? Being
Yeah.
safeguarding you.
Yeah, trying to protect their little ones, adult ones. But I'm sure it was a different experience for them too, and I'm thankful that they were open minded to give me the opportunity to try the dating apps, and I worked out. So
Yeah, acá with me was people to people networking, the old
Yes.
traditional way. I met
Yeah.
my husband through my mutual friends, and it turned out that the mutual friend was his sister.
Right.
And so shout out to mi coma Lisette. She made the connection, and,
Yeah.
and along with other friends that also supported in that process. But it was different. You met people through other people, and now it's definitely changed. Ni de Allá means for the dating is like I wanted to have a boyfriend, but I wanted certain things que estaban acá sucediendo con mis amistades, or what you see in the high school, right? People, oh, we're dating, vamos a parties, vamos a ir a, pool parties que había. Well, never happened for us, or any other things. It was very traditional, as much as my parents saw it as traditional, but there was certain compromises that they did, which is like when I went to the movie theaters, like that was like something they wouldn't have experimented, obviously.
Right.
The freedom to do that, but they also had like some like added step in there, like you can't go by yourself, you had to take someone with you.
Yeah, you had a representative there.
Of the parents.
Yeah.
We won't go with you, but we'll send a representative.
Our 8-year-old child.
She is of trusting
Qualified.
nature and qualified to tell us what's going on.
Yes.
And so it was just an interesting.
Yeah.
So that example is just kind of an example of Ni de Aquí, Ni de Allá. Like, right, you're keeping your traditional way of living, your culture, but in a place where it's different.
Yeah, expanding a little bit and having an open-mindedness to give your kids that space to explore themselves in this new country they're in.
And another thing that I could share is the weight. Traditionally, when in Mexico, some couples, and I know that's changing with modern times, but in 2010, when we got married, the expectation is you have kids right away. So here we are, like traditionally getting married, right? We got married in Mexico. But the expectation was like yesterday, like the day after you married, you had to try to have kids. And for my husband and myself, we decided to wait. We're like, we're not at a place. I had just graduated UCSB. Obviously, I didn't have a job yet. Manuel was starting off his career. He's an automotive technician, so he was starting his career, and so we just didn't feel, ready financially, and we weren't ready financially. And so, I was still trying to see what my next step would be. I took about 2-year gap between my bachelor's and my master's. But for us, and while we were dating, we spoke about that. It's like we don't want to have kids right away. And I think in our culture is like, excuse me, what's going on? Like,
right.
Like,
you're like,
why don't you want kids?
Yeah.
And a lot of people asking. And I think that's like where we get into very sensitive things for couples, because you never know. Maybe they're intentionally not wanting to have kids, or wait to have kids. Maybe they can't have kids, or maybe they made the choice to not have kids.
Right.
And I think that didn't fit into that way of thinking at that time. I know things have changed, but that's where we felt Ni de Aquí, Ni de Allá. Like we were doing something que era más predominantly based here in the culture where people wait to have kids. But the expectation was
right.
right,
like
like
the clock is ticking.
what's going on, like something wrong, and we would be asked all the time. And I think that's a sensitive subject. If you see a couple, just be respectful of their choices. Sometimes they don't have control.
Right. You don't know what their journey is, what they're going through.
And it's something that was asked of us a lot. And sometimes we were like, I don't want to go to a party because they're going to ask. And honestly, we were tired of explaining. They got to a point where I'm not even going to bother. And so that's something that we learned to navigate. Like, okay, the expectation to have kids right off the bat when you get married, but we decided to do what was more predominantly here. The expectation with many people, they want to settle first and get financially ready, to start a family. And that was something that we also had to learn to navigate as a couple, right? As being married. So fue un caminar también eso.
My parents have also learned, and family have also learned that, because now that husband and I, we got married last year, and everyone has been very respectful of our choice of waiting to have kids too. So you really do see that change in the times.
Definitely. And it's wonderful to see that, because it's more consciousness, right, of the person and respectful of that decision of that particular new household of that couple.
Yeah, because you don't know, their financial situation, their health situation. There's so many variables involved. So giving them that independence and that space to make that decision on their own is important. And another example I think of, birthday parties. I know we talked about especially when we just got here, it was more of just our immediate family. Kind of, we would have parties. And I remember you're in school, you get a little invitation for one of your classmates inviting you to their party. And they have a jump house, and they had ice cream and pizza and all the things. And I remember thinking these are different than my party. We didn't invite our classmates. It was just the familia too. I don't know if you had that experience at all with parties.
I personally didn't get it. That was probably not a very popular thing.
Maybe it
I feel
maybe it was
tiempo
different,
para acá, it was a little different. But now I see it with my daughter. She gets the invitation for her classmates' party. We actually got one recently. And it's you RSVP. Nosotros, we don't RSVP usually. And para los mexicanos, we just assume.
Show up.
And we don't keep count who's coming. We just prepare for who that amount of people we invited.
Who might come.
Más vale que sobre, right? La comida, right? Más vale que sobre, y everybody can take a platito home. And then we party, decimos de 12 en adelante. And depending what day it is, Saturday, the party might start a little later because people are working. Or Sunday, they might arrive sooner because they're off. Usually most of the people are off. But then we party until se meta el sol. If you're in the park, hasta que cierren el parque, right?
Hasta que te corran.
Hasta que te venga el señor ya recogiendo el ranger ahí. Y acá aquí en Estados Unidos es muy formal.
Yeah, it's an invitation. You say yes or no, you're coming.
And then if you come, el party es de las 11 a las 4. And it is 11 a las 4, ¿verdad? And then we clean up and then we leave. Entonces, ya lo hemos, I feel como que ya se está adaptando en muchas partes también esa tradición. Lo hemos visto
setting
más
a time frame, or?
Como la exclusividad de la invitación. We can see it more in Mexico now, kind of taking that adaptation. If you get married in el rancho, the expectation is you're going to invite everyone,
right?
Everybody in the rancho. But sometimes there's exclusive parties where they don't invite everybody. There's per invitation, you RSVP o tienes pases. You have a little pass, and then that's how they kind of keep track. Depending where at, who it could be offensive to the people in the rancho if you don't invite them. Don't take it personally. It's just sometimes we don't know. Maybe they don't have enough for everyone, or what their financial circumstances might be. If you're in el rancho, you open it up to the whole community, and you just make birria, porque birria is very
plentiful.
It can feed an army, right? It can feed the community,
and it's delicious.
And it's delicious. That's a plus, right? And so here it's more like exclusive. I guess I want to say. I don't know if that's
like
the right word.
they want to have a head count of who's coming, and so they have.
Yeah, so they can be very prepared and organized and not stressed because sometimes it is stressful if you invite the whole community because you're like, I hope the video lasts. And I'm not like thinking how we're going to cover it if it doesn't. And here it's more like organized. Like, you know, I want to have the amount of people who are coming, maybe setting the plates, the plate settings enough for who's coming. And we just don't show up like without an RSVP.
Right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Very true. All right. Well, I think that's it for right now. The plática is real good, like I've said before.
Real good.
Yes. But there will be a part 2 to this episode because, you know, there was just a lot to talk about. Yeah. But again, we want to say thank you to everyone who has been listening or watching. And just to remember that on YouTube, you can put subtitles in Spanish or in English for our Spanish episode that we had with our mom. And yeah, we look forward to meeting you again on Wednesdays. New episodes come out. And feel free to follow us on our social media. El Facebook is what we have. We have Instagram. We have TikTok. We have... ¿Qué más?
On YouTube.
I guess YouTube and Spotify.
Yes. For
those listeners who want to listen to us while they're driving or doing chores, you can just put us on Spotify and listen to our conversations. And con gratitud, this is Mija, let me tell you.